Hello everyone, my name is Amberly Perro, and today I want to talk about one of the most famous shipwrecks of all time. It's called the Titanic. The Titanic is also known as the Ship of Dreams. On April 10th, 1912, it was set to voyage all the way from Southampton, England to New York. But unfortunately, on April 14th, it struck an iceberg and killed over 1,500 people, and only 705 survived. There are many factors that went wrong on the Titanic, including passenger safety, the building process, and how the passengers were treated. Today, I'm going to talk about how the passengers were being treated on the building process and how safety regulations changed from sea travel from that time. One of the main points that I want to talk about is the different classes. It kind of depended on the type of ticket that you purchased. There was first class, second class, and third class. First class had a variety range about to like maybe $500 to about $50,000 for the big parlor suites that they had. And in first class, you had access to everything. You had your own gym, you had your own restaurant, and you also had a lot of room in your suite. This is an example of a first class passenger room. And they had their own personal bathrooms, and they had gold all around it. But not only that, their dining room was so beautiful, and they had a variety of choices that they could choose from. For second class passengers, they were usually known as the middle class, and the tickets usually ranged from about, I think, like $300 to $100 to $300. And this is a picture of a second class room. And it's a lot smaller than the first class, but surprisingly enough, a lot of people said that they preferred the second class passenger rooms because they were the most comfortablest. They didn't have their own bathrooms. They all had to share the same bathrooms. There's different bathrooms in different parts of the ship. But they also didn't really have access, so they couldn't go to the restaurant that was only for first class passengers only. But they still managed to have a lot of fun. And for the third class passengers, it was usually for immigrants and for poor people, and the tickets usually range from about $60 to $100. Yeah, $60 to $100. And this is an example of a third class room. And as you can see, it's a lot smaller than all of the other rooms, and they were usually on the lower decks, and they also had a fun time as well. The second point that I want to bring up is about the building process. Titanic was known as the unsinkable, and one of the reasons why it was known as the unsinkable was just because of how it was constructed and built. It took over 3,000 employees and 2 years to complete it. Phil Wilkinson discovered that the framework had over 300 steel sections, and there was a long metal structure that ran all along the bottom of the hull, acting as the spine of the ship. And the vessel had large boilers and 4 funnels that was 62 feet tall. And here is a construction of the Titanic. And right here are the 4 funnels, and as you can see, this is where the first class passengers would normally be. Over here is where the staterooms would be. That's usually where the third class would be. And yeah, it's pretty big, and it was over 82,000 feet wide and weighed over 50,000 tons. The last point that I want to talk about is the safety. So the Titanic only had about 20 lifeboats, which is actually kind of surprising, you would think, but they had over 2,000 passengers. You would think that would be enough for them. Well, White Star Line originally wanted more lifeboats, but they decided to cut them off because they wanted more room for other things, and they didn't want the decks to be surrounded by lifeboats. When the Titanic hit the iceberg, they demanded women and children should be in the lifeboats first, and some did not make the capacity because so many people were panicking. In fact, so many lifeboats that were being docked only had about half the capacity that they could have made. But since everyone was panicking, they were just in a hurry of time, and only 2 lifeboats went back to save the other people who were in the water. Many survivors were angry because they felt that the crew was not prepared at all and should have been for a situation like this. Cruise lines today have enough lifeboats for all passengers and does a safety discussion with everyone before they leave port. Today I've discussed the history of the Titanic and why the tragedy was significant for future travel. I have talked about the different classes on how they were treated, the building process, and passenger safety, on how things went wrong and how they overcame it. I want to talk about Ava Hart. She was 7 years old when she was on the Titanic, and she never lived her life in fear. In fact, she quoted, "If I acted like that, I would have died of fright many years ago." Life has to be lived irrespective of the possible dangers and tragedies lurking around the corner. I am reading that, you just show that at such a young age, when she was 7 years old, she went through such a traumatic moment in her life, and the fact that she didn't live her life in fear and continued to live life is really inspiring. I am thankful knowing that safety is more important than it was at that time, and I would not have to experience anything like Ava did. Thank you.